Hey, Rodney Miller here with Hard Money Partner. I'm back with Ryan Davis, real estate investor here in Oklahoma City. And today we're going to talk about flipping houses. And me and him were talking about this. The two really important factors in flipping houses, if you want to be a house flipper and you're trying to figure it out. The two important aspects of that are we came up with, or Ryan did, budget and time. Two very important things you got to watch if you're flipping houses. And Ryan knows what he's talking about. He's done over 300 deals, most of those flips, full rehab flips. And so, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's talk about budgeting and time when it comes to rehabbing houses. Why are those so important?
Just kind of a scenario. Let's say I just quit my job and I am flipping my first house. Obviously the budget part of rehabbing the house and buying the house is pretty self-explanatory, and most people kind of grasp that concept. What most people don't think about, don't factor in with their budgeting is carrying costs, taxes, insurance, utilities, keeping the yard mowed, interest on your money. I mean, time is not your friend. If you're trying to do this as a full-time gig, you have, most people have home expenses too. You got your regular house that you live in, that you've got your utilities and bills for. So being able to time effectively flip houses is one of the most critical things to learn. If you've got, use an example, let's say you've got $100,000 to flip houses with. Well, you can buy and fix up one house for $100,000. If you can buy it, fix it up, and flip it in 4 months, you can do 3 houses a year. If you make $20,000 off of each one, that's $60,000 a year. If it takes you 6 months, you can only do it twice. That's $40,000 a year. If you can only do it once, you only made $20,000 that year.
Yeah, I would argue that they should divide it into 3 down payments of $30,000 or so, and get hard money loan and do 3 deals 3 times a year. Bump that up to 9 deals a year.
I'm
a little biased in that area. But why use all your money when you can use somebody else's money and do more deals?
That was my next step. That was my next comment, was if you've got $100,000 versus paying cash for $100,000, and this is where the budgeting comes in. So there's the example for time of why time is so critical, because you have to be able to turn a house and turn your money within a certain time frame to maximize what you have, the resources you have available, because nobody has unlimited. None of us have unlimited resources.
Exactly.
So the next step would be to maximize your budget. Would be if, say, you've got, again, same scenario, you've got $100,000, use a hard money lender, use that $100,000 to cover some of your costs, and you can do multiple deals at a time. But you still need to keep your schedule down to about a 4-month window by the time you have money in till the time you have money out, as close to that 4-month mark as possible.
Yeah, and a lot of people just don't factor that in. We do that for them when we have a spreadsheet, but we factor in taxes, insurance, the maintenance, mowing, landscaping, especially in the summer months, spring and summer months. But you're going to pay a realtor to sell it. You're going to pay a title company to run the title work when you buy it, when you sell it, and all those expenses add up. But a lot of those are mitigated, or holding costs that you mitigate by keeping your window short in the time that you hold that property. So I think that's great advice. Like some people will buy a property and then they'll go start looking for contractors, and it's a month gets eaten up, right? And they're trying to put together everything. You should have all that ready to go.
Yes, absolutely.
Rock and roll the day you close on the deal, right?
Absolutely, because in the 300 plus deals that I've done in my career, the 4 months is kind of the magic window. If you can realistically, consistently average a 4-month turnaround on a property, you will do well. If that 4 months turns into 6, you'll still make money, but you're kind of hurting yourself with those 2 extra months, because that's not you should be able to do it in 4. 2 months is, if you've got $100,000 borrowed, that's going to cost you in taxes, insurance, carrying costs, and everything else, roughly $2,000 a month, just off the top of my head without using a calculator. So those 2 extra months, there's $4,000. If you're making $16,000, $18,000, $20,000 on a deal, you're going to make 15 instead of 20, just because of those 2 extra months.
Gotcha. Yeah, it eats up your profit really quick.
Yeah, I mean, faster is always better, but within the term of being realistic, 4 months, I think that's the magic number that I always shoot for.
So that's from the day you close on it to the day you close on it?
Correct.
Okay. That's pretty quick. That's a pretty quick timeline. Do you try to seek out light rehabs, stuff that, where you're not, the rehab budget is not more than the actual purchase price? Do you look at deals that way?
No, I just, when I do that, I factor in the time and say, okay, well, there's no possible way we can do this in 4 months. So my purchase price has to go down to cover those extra months of carrying cost. And that's where the budget comes in. Hey, if this is if it's a $250,000, $300,000 house that needs $150,000 rehab, that's going to take you a year to do. Mm-hmm. You better factor in every available cost for an entire year.
Yes. And go back to this. Yeah. Go back when you're negotiating and negotiate that into the deal.
Right.
And that's where I guess that's where experience counts. When you do multiple deals, you start learning these hard lessons.
Yeah.
Probably the hard way, but that's how you learn this business, right? I mean, you didn't jump into this and learn this right off the bat, right? I'm sure you learned from experience and from losing some money, from breaking even on deals, and
yeah. I've learned lessons that things you would never even imagine. And even today, there's deals that come up and things that happen on deals that I scratch my head at, and like, wow, I'd never seen that before.
Yeah. So 4 months average rehab deal. And then I guess you have peppered in there, you probably have some like wholetailing deals where they're just quick cleanup and throw out there, and you can turn those in a month or two.
Yes. Yeah.
What percentage of those, what percentage of your volume do you think falls into that? Explain what a hotel deal is, and maybe what percentage, because you do advertising and you go knock on doors and stuff. So what percentage falls into that category, the quick turnaround deals?
It's pretty small. And historically, I have not had that good of luck doing it. I have had some that have gone very well, but I have a tendency, this is just me personally, I'll put a house, let's say that it's a pretty good rehab. I paid $100,000 for it. I put it on the market at $130,000. I've already cleaned the trash out. I've kind of got an inspection done with a little bit of scope of work, kind of some ammunition for what can be made with it, and when I start getting 3 or 4 offers in a row of people offering me less than what I paid for it, offering $60,000 or $70,000, I personally get frustrated. It's like, okay, well, screw that. I'm just going to rehab it. I like rehabs better anyway. I have had others where just due to circumstance, I couldn't rehab them. So I just dealt with the fact that I get multiple lowball offers until I got a good offer, and that does happen too. It just, for me personally, I get kind of down and kind of get frustrated when people come in and make, they can pull up on the county assessor and see I paid $100 and they're turning around and offering me $60 for it.
Yeah.
A week after I bought it. Yeah. That's why are you even wasting my time?
I totally understand that. So I'm going to back up a little bit, because you mentioned earlier, if you quit your job and you do your first rehab, well, you probably don't want to quit your job and do your first rehab. So let's talk about, maybe really quickly, a lot of people have jobs and they want to get into this business and they want to transition. What do you think the best way to transition? I mean, you definitely probably need to do it part-time on your first, few deals, right? I mean,
yes.
How would you transit? Because you've done this. You worked for a title company. You had a job, and you were able to transition from that job to full-time flipping. And I'm guessing you were flipping while you were working your job, and eventually.
Actually, I once I got my first deal, I quit my job.
Oh, wow. Before you even rehabbed it and sold it?
Before I rehabbed it. So I would have, I quit my job before I got it resold, but I did work some into the rehab, and then eventually it was just I didn't have enough hours in the day, and how I, and my situation was different. I had a little bit of money saved up. My wife worked. We didn't have kids. We lived super, super cheap for that first year or two. I mean, like we'd go to a Friday night date would be a hot dog and a drink for $1.50 at Sam's. That type of living cheap for a year or two.
Yeah.
To
nice.
So that I didn't have to work, so that I could do this full time. And not everybody can do that, but yeah, definitely don't quit your job and bank on this until you have some experience.
So yeah, I mean, the fundamentals would basically be keep your job, try to do it while you have income. Unless you have other circumstances, a bunch of money sitting in a bank account, you still probably have to keep your job. I mean, just to do it the right way. I would keep my job until I had a few deals and I proved the concept. A lot of people jump into rehab flipping and they don't like it. It's too much work and they get frustrated. They don't make money on the first couple deals and they bail out. So you hate to see somebody quit their job and a good job and then have that experience. But it takes the pressure off if you keep your job going. You can definitely flip a house while you have a job, right? I mean,
right. You have to have contractors you can count on.
Yeah.
If you're working full time and you're going to do all the work yourself, you better plan on owning that thing for a couple of years.
Gotcha. And I think the other aspect of that is you need some money in the bank. You can't. I don't think you can really approach you can't jump in this business with no money.
No.
It's very difficult. And if you don't have any money, you want to reevaluate kind of what you're doing and why you would be good at flipping houses. If you haven't accumulated any savings whatsoever up to this point, maybe you refocus and you try to save some money. I mean, I think having 20, 30 grand in the bank would be a huge benefit to you going into this. Cause I mean, I'm a hard money lender and I don't know any lenders that don't require you to have money in a deal for the down payment. And then there's some closing cost expenses, points, fees, and all that. Any bank's going to charge you points, fees, and they're going to want you to have 20% down or whatever. So you got to, got to have holding cost and all that stuff. So, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think it would be a good amount of money to have saved up before you jumped into this business? Or there's shortcuts. You can find a partner that's got the money, and you don't make as much money on your first deal. They bring the down payment and all that money, and you got to split it. Have a split at the back end, or but you're going to have some money. Or you can get, if you're really savvy, you can get the seller to carry back, terms. That's not easy to do that. Everybody makes it sound like it's just an easy thing to do. Like, oh yeah, I'll carry it back. And it's not easy. And you're going to probably lose the deal to somebody who's got cash, right?
Yeah. I've never made one of those deals work. Yeah.
I've had a few, but they weren't great deals. But so what do you think somebody would need to have based on your experience?
I had about 40,000, I think, saved up when I did my first deal.
Okay. 40 grand. That's probably about right. Probably get a deal and get a loan on it and make that thing work.
And I got a loan on the first one. In fact, I end up kind of lucking into two at the same time. And this one of the ones was something I bought off MLS at the time, and I was relatively inexperienced. However, the difference was and it was a bank owned. It was in terrible condition. I wanted to live there. It was in a good neighborhood, and it was a small, cheap house in a pretty decent neighborhood. So I was like, I'm gonna buy that and live in it because I can do it cheap. Whether if I ended up actually flipping it, I wouldn't have made much money off of it. But I lived in it for 3 or 4 years, then I rented it out for 3 or 4 years and ended up making money off of it when I sold it.
Gotcha. All right, budget and time. Anything you want to add to that?
As far as budgeting goes, I mean, your budget has to shift with time frame. If you budget for 4 months and it takes you 8 months, you're probably going to end up in a pretty sticky situation.
Yep.
If you're an inexperienced flipper and you've never done one, and you hire a contractor and the contractor says, "Oh yeah, I can have this done in 2 months," you better double it. Because it's not that simple. There's always unforeseen issues. Contractors aren't the most reliable people in the world. Even my contractors that have worked for me I've got the same contractor that's worked for me for 15 years. His time frames are still not always accurate. So,
Yeah.
that's just, you can't bank on your budget on what somebody's telling you. Like I say, that's just something that comes with experience, is just being able to really understand and know what kind of time frame you're going to get into to budget accordingly, because your ability to profit depends on it.
Absolutely. Good advice, brother. Good advice. What's your email address? How can people reach out to you?
Call or text rddavis@webuyhouses.com or 405-971-4049.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yep.
Rodney
Thanks.
Miller, Hard Money Partner. Thanks for watching. If you need a loan, give me a call. We loan in Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and most of the state of Oklahoma, and now Dallas-Fort Worth. We've made a couple of loans in Dallas-Fort Worth last month, and we're trying to make more. So appreciate you guys watching. If you need money, give me a call. If you don't, just watch the show. Thanks a lot.